Welcome to the 248th episode of the Jamie Delaney Plant-Based Wellness Podcast. My name is Jamie Delaney, and I'm your host. I'm a plant-based cardiologist and endurance athlete living in Southwest Florida. Thank you, welcome, and hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Dr. McGill on spine health and stability. Today we have another endurance-type podcast with Jeff Galloway. Jeff Galloway is a former Olympian. He was on the 1972 Olympic team running the 10K. He's been a longtime marathoner and educator in the art of running. He invented the run, walk, run method that has led to over 500,000 people completing marathons, and he has compiled a whole host of data fine-tuning this run, walk, run method so that you can actually complete a marathon and feel good afterwards. Pretty good, I mean, it's still a marathon. It's not a cakewalk. But he has, the programs that will help you to complete a marathon safely, no matter what your age is. And as I've said before, everyone is too old not to run. And it's a great way to get out and enjoy activity. At 74 years of age, he's still running a marathon a month with his wife. So he is a testimony that, this method lasts over time. I've adopted this method for my next marathon, and we'll have a lengthy discussion about the run-walk method. And, it's much more complicated than running and walking. I have said on the podcast before during my Ironmans, I'll do a run-walk type style of for the marathon portion of the Ironman. But I have never completed his training program with all the nuances that he has in his books and in his training plans. And on his website, jeffgalloway.com, he has a variety of training plans that you can download. He has a lot of free information. His books are wonderful. He has several books that I'll list into the podcast about running, marathon running to your 100. And I hope that you enjoy this episode and interview with him. Listen to last week's episode and you're curious about what spinal flossing is, both femoral and sacral flossing. We have a little video up on the on the regular website at drdelaney.com. It's DOCTORDULANEY that you can watch the video and see exactly what we were talking about during the interview. I think a lot of people really enjoyed and was inspired by that podcast because back pain and back injuries are very common to all of us. And just like everything else in the medical community, a lot of times people are looking for a quick fix, but also the medical community are looking to fix people quickly, and surgery and medications are prescribed, but the root cause of the injury is not really addressed. And this was an episode in Dr. McGill's books to look at those methods that you can assure your spine health and, correct a lot of things that surgery may not correct or surgery may not ultimately fix and get you back to doing what you want to do. So I hope you enjoyed that episode. Go on over there and check that one out if you haven't. As always, I'm still in rehab here for my own little injury. It's getting better. I'm now running and walking, working my way back up, planning on doing a marathon in the fall as well as our swim run event. So that's all well and good. Outside gardening. It's amazing, when we talk about spinal stability, I've been outside digging up mulch and putting new mulch down and pulling out weeds and hoeing out weeds in the garden. And that requires a lot of stability in the spine. And even though you might think that digging and hoeing would be hard on the back, that tightening of the spine when you're actually doing that activity to generate force in your arms actually leads to spinal stability. And it's actually been part of my rehab. So I'm getting some yard work done during my rehab. So that's all good as well. Backyard garden is, still going along. Peppers, tomatoes, collards, the usual are growing. The tower garden's doing very, very well. Mangoes are getting bigger and hoping to, maybe we'll see some ripe ones June, I would guess, is when they'll start to come in, but everything's hanging on. We have a couple avocado trees that are loaded this year, which is very exciting. So that's all good. I'm anxiously awaiting the arrival of my first grandson here in May. So happy May to everybody. It's going to be Caleb's birthday month. So I'm looking forward to heading out to Texas to be with Addie and her husband Nathan when Caleb arrives. So it's an exciting month and lots going on. I think I'll jump to the interview now. I just wanted to do a little update nutrition-wise since this is a plant-based podcast. I'm planning on driving from Florida to Houston. I'm packing my own food, probably going to eat raw for the most part. I'll be taking some of the cookbook recipe muffins, I guess, for my breakfast, but I'll be eating fruit and vegetables all along the way that I can pack in my cooler for 17 hours, and maybe I'll do a little documentation of what I'm eating. I think that even in this time where things aren't quite open, again, we can still feed ourselves quite well being plant-based and looking to improve our own immunity by eating lots of fruits and vegetables and greens. So I hope you all are getting, your nutrition down. It can be very simple this time of year as it gets hotter outside. I really enjoy, again, I'm a big fruit person in the morning. Watermelons are good here in Florida. We're starting to get some mangoes from Mexico, so that's part of my morning breakfast. Papaya is always on the breakfast table for me here in Florida. We have some papaya trees, and we can get them locally very good. Big salad for lunch, lots of vegetables. People have asked me, I start out with a giant bowl of greens and then add some vegetables on top of that, and then usually do a grain or a starch with that. Usually it's rice or a barley. If I don't do a grain, then I may put some beans on the salad as well. But I keep it pretty simple at lunch, and then have some more fruit, and then typically we'll have a cooked dinner at dinner time. So keep it simple. Keep your nutrition going. That's the best way to health. Get outside and get some exercise. I read today, and I completely agree, you're not going to get this virus outside exercising. So go outside, socially distance yourself. Obviously, you're not going to be in, big groups of people at this time. But, don't be so worried that you don't go outside and get some sunshine. It's one of your best ways to get vitamin D. That's going to boost your immune system. Get your exercise on. That's going to boost your immune function. Get your weight down. That's going to support your immune health. So these are all things you can do. The only thing that you hear on TV for the most part is fear. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot we don't know about this virus. And there's a lot of people that like to argue one way or the other that it is as bad as it is, or it's not as bad, or this is what we should do, or that's what we should do. And the reality of it is nobody really has the right answer to going forward. This is a whole new thing for us. And I think we should focus on what we can do as opposed to arguing about who's right or who's wrong. And plant-based nutrition is one thing that we can do right. Exercise is one thing we can do right. And be kind to others and positive to others is also one thing that we can do. So I would encourage you not to have this time to be politically fighting amongst yourselves over what study is right, what treatment might be best, to vaccinate, not to vaccinate. Those are all personal opinions. Those are all things that we don't have a lot of data on with regards to COVID at this point. So it's not worth arguing over. Stay positive, support your fellow human being, support the planet, stay healthy, plant some vegetables, take your dog for a walk, and please enjoy this podcast with Jeff Galloway. Welcome, Jeff Galloway. This is quite the honor. I have many of the books are sitting right here. Followed you for years. Jeff, back in just a few years ago in 1972, you were a 10K Olympian. and have coached, I think, over 300,000 people to marathon success by your run-walk method. And I think a lot of people, I think your name is so synonymous with run-walk, people probably don't think you're real.
I do get that every once in a while, especially at some of the Disney events. As a matter of fact, one of my best compliments is that somebody will come up and say, you're my favorite Disney character. And I'm honored. I mean, that's up there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, I'm going to do the math for everybody. I was looking at I have both your books with me here today, Running Until You're 100 and the Marathon Running. And then, of course, your training book. I actually have the plan book at home, but it says here, you were running 60 miles in 2000 during this publication. You were running 60 miles a week. Now you're 74 years old, if I do my math right now. So what are you doing these days?
I have shifted my training. I still try to get in a marathon every month, although with everything that's going on, that is not going to happen this year. It's not going to even be close, as we know. Yeah. But the other exercise that I do, I've really shifted more towards a step count type of goal each day. I shoot for over 15,000 steps a day. And I do it in segments throughout the day. I used to have an unhealthy type of behavior pattern. I get about 100 emails a day, and I used to just sit in front of the computer after my morning run until my afternoon run, and I would sit there for 6, sometimes 8 hours at a time. And I knew that was not good for me and any long term. So anyway, what I do is I set my Galloway timer that beeps and vibrates for every 20 to 30 minutes. And when it beeps, I get up and I will go for about 5 to 10 minutes at least. And then I've earned my right to go back and answer some more emails.
Very, very good. Well, let's dive into it. We talked just briefly. This podcast is about wellness, plant-based nutrition, and marathon and running. And I actually, in my practice, I have several people that some of them have heart disease, some of them don't, but they are over 60 and they want to do a marathon within the next year. So, there's been people, that say you're too old not to run. And, you have the book, You're Running Till You're 100. So I would guess you're in that camp that it's a good idea for everybody to do a little bit of running.
Well, obviously, a few people, and you know this better than anybody else, there are a few people that should not run, especially after a certain age. But in my experience, the percentage of people over, say, 60 years old that should not run is extremely small. I mean, it's infinitesimal. And I can tell you that I've individually coached about 2,000 to 3,000 runners over the age of 70. And all of them have gone through the training and run marathons, and they haven't had any problems unless they violated my rules and didn't follow the right advice. But very few of them violated the rules. Almost every one of them followed it because they were scared to death doing their first marathon above the age of 70. And the other major thing about what running does for you, especially endurance type running and half or full marathon, is what it does for the brain. And the brain benefits are absolutely huge. When I wrote my book, Mental Training, I uncovered a treasure trove of research showing the benefits. And the major benefits that you feel on a day-to-day basis are that running turns on the good attitude circuit, the vitality circuit, and the personal empowerment circuit in your brain better than anything else that's ever been studied. But especially for those who are worried about mental fog encroaching as the years go by, running will do something for that too. And what exercise in general, but running to the highest level does, is it turns on the hippocampus. And that's the center for learning, for memory, and for new growth of brain cells. And the new growth of brain cells is, of course, a really huge deal. When you do aerobic endurance exercise, you cause a brain hormone to be produced after about 30 minutes. And it's called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. But the nickname for that hormone is miracle grow for the brain, because that's what it does.
Absolutely. And, from a cardiac standpoint, you have research in your books citing after age 60% decrease in heart attacks for men, 40% decrease in women. It just goes on and on. Disability, pain and disability, much less in runners than in not. So this idea that, we have to retire and sit in a chair and wait is just not a good idea. So let's go in. A lot of people, again, think that the Galloway Run Walk method is just a name. Let's go into how did that come about for you to get that all started?
Tallahassee, Florida, in 1974. I had just opened up my running store called Fidipides, and I'm proud to say that we're still alive, although this recent pandemic is devastating the business. And there are not going to be many running stores that survive this. We hope to be one of them that does, because we have online sales that my son Brennan has facilitated. But I was just starting in 1974, and I had the opposite problem in that era, and that was very, very few people ran. And so I tried to beat the bushes to get people to come in my store. And I was offered the opportunity to teach a class at FSU on beginning running, which I took up. And 22 in the class, none of them had been doing any running for at least 5 years. So I had never had any experience with beginners like this. And my gut told me that I needed to put walk breaks in. So we divided up pretty quickly into 3 groups, just based on what their current fitness level was at that moment. And I went out with every group, every workout, staggered them on various days to be able to do that. And I listened for the huffing and puffing in each group. And this was, as you know, doctor, this is your natural heart monitor, because your respiratory rate is directly tied to heart rate. And as you start huffing and puffing, you're going to start to get into more duress if you don't do something about it. So when anyone in the group was huffing a little bit, we took a walk break. And so we weren't really systematic at first, but as I collected the data month after month in the store, working with people, and then year after year with our Galloway training programs that are now in over 50 cities worldwide, I began to see the tremendous benefits here, because at the end of that first class, 10 weeks later, not only did every one of them finish a 5 or a 10K, but there were no injuries. I had never been with a group of runners for more than 2 months, and no one got injured. And this trend continued as I worked with others, first beginners, and then as the beginners got better and kept using Run, Walk, Run and started beating the veterans wanted this too. So this is how it started in 1974, and we've been going stronger and stronger every year since.
And to gauge, to get one started, and your book, you take people all the way to it's a pretty impressive 3 hours and 30 minutes, right? That's where you can run walk somebody 3 hours 30, 3 hours 15. Is that what
we've actually had people run below 2 hours and 30 minutes,
really,
who had not used walk breaks before and used them every mile to try to run faster. And others who have, a lot of folks, several hundred people, have broken 3 hours in the marathon, which is below a 7-minute per mile pace for the whole way. And this group of several hundred who broke 3 hours using our method wasn't able to do so when they ran nonstop. So it's a strange deal, and it really doesn't compute logically until you try it. But what happens with the run, walk, run method is if you use it from the beginning, you erase the buildup of stress on the weak links of the body that tend to break down, the joints, the muscles, the feet, and so forth. But you also erase the fatigue buildup on the major units like the calf muscle that you're going to be using at the end. So if you keep erasing that fatigue, then you're the one that's passing people at the end and not slowing down. And that's where the time improvement comes. It's over 13 minutes in a marathon when you take people that used to run nonstop and shift to the right run, walk, run. And in a half marathon, it's over 7 minutes faster when nonstop runners find the right run, walk, run.
You know, that it's very interesting. I was just looking over the last marathon the two before. My best time actually was just here recently in December at California International. And
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually Boston qualified, so I was very happy. But
yay.
Yeah, and it was pretty much even split. I was a little bit positive. A lot of people talk about, you want to even split or negative split a marathon. And so I went back this morning and looked at results at the CIM, and I looked at the elite runners, and almost all of them were either just within seconds of a negative split or even. And then when you got and then if you looked at the last finishers, they were actually positive. So their second half was actually 47 to 57 minutes slower than their first half. And even if you back down into that mid-packer, they were still someplace between 20 and 45 minutes slower on the second half. And so, you always see, I'm back in the 4-hour range there. And, you kind of see the walking dead, so to speak, at the people that go out really fast. And it's not, it doesn't discriminate by age or size. There's everybody back there. There's trying that, that are walking and, that have gone out way too fast. And you start finding people as you go along if you're not paced right. So this method is a good way to keep you from hitting that wall, so to speak.
Oh, that's the bottom line right there. You don't have to hit the wall if you use the right run, walk, run. And also you are able to adjust the run, walk, run if you encounter any difficulties. My data now among people that I have directly worked with and gave them advice, and then they got back to me is over 500,000 runners.
Wow.
And so I sort through the advice that I gave and how it worked. And I've done that for 45 years. Well, the bottom line on all of that is that about 100,000 of those folks were in those categories that you were just mentioning about how they used to go out and then have a positive split of slowing down between 20 and an hour. Actually, a lot of them about 10, 15 years ago were slowing down a full hour during the second half. They just spent too much in the beginning. But with the run, walk, run, everybody has control over their destiny. It's really an empowering concept.
Yeah, it is very, very interesting. So, but the concept that's a little bit hard to grasp, or I guess, like you say, how you've coached, if you just read through it, it's like, oh, well, I get to walk. I walk 30 seconds or I walk a minute, but it's not just a little meander. It's you gotta walk with authority.
Well, it depends on the individual, actually, because some people find that they need to walk slower, but most folks have some sort of rhythm to it. You certainly do not want to have a long stride. That can get you into trouble. And there are actually more injuries among those that walk with a long stride than you'll find in the average running injury database. But the bottom line here is that if you put those walk breaks early and often, you keep erasing fatigue. And you'll get to 13 miles with, instead of having 13 miles worth of fatigue on your legs, there'll only be 5 to 8 miles of fatigue. This is why people can speed up at the end and be able to run faster. So the other concept then with the run, walk, run in races as long as the marathon is that you're going to recover faster. and you're able to interact with friends and family afterwards instead of going up to your bedroom and shutting the door and zonking for the next 12 hours or more. It gives you a life while you're training for these long events. You can interweave long runs every 3 weeks and still do things the rest of the day with your family and friends.
Yeah, I think that's where, I'm gonna use myself as the bad example here. So confessions of when I do Ironman, I do run walk. Recently, I've been to completely confess, I'm currently injured from overdoing it. Did a good run in December, wanted to go faster again in a couple months. So kept pushing speed work, kept pushing mileage, kept pushing long runs, got myself in down the rabbit hole that doing the long run every weekend and all, on and on and on. And, where that goes.
Oh, that'll do it. No doubt. And of course, without the right run, walk, run, you're going to get injured. I mean, the anthropological research is quite clear on that. Our ancient ancestors did not prepare us for long, continuous runs. They walked everywhere they went, and they did short bouts of running. But because bones, joints, and everything else is not designed for nonstop long-distance running, things will break if you try to do that. But the good news is, with the right run, walk, run, you're going to run faster than nonstop. This is very well documented.
Yes, I mean, again, my most pleasant marathons have been run, walk.
With the exception, you can have your faster ones there too.
Yeah, so now I get to do it. So we start out pretty much with a Magic Mile pretty early on, right? That's how we start to gauge things.
Yes, the Magic Mile is an assessment tool. It gives you a reality check on your ego because most runners choose a goal that is not realistic. Imagine that. But the way that the Magic Mile works is based now on a database of more than 80,000 people who've reported in their fastest Magic Mile time during a season and then their fastest races at various distances. So we've crunched the numbers on that, and we have a free prediction table and computation function on our website. You can go to jeffgalloway.com, pull up Magic Mile. And so you take your first Magic Mile and you send it through the computation, and it'll tell you currently what the fastest marathon or half marathon, whatever you're shooting for, the fastest time that you could expect to do during that season. Mm-hmm. Now, the first thing we do with the Magic Mile time on that first one is we compute a safe pace for long runs, which that computation will also do for you. And the main reason there is that the most common reason that runners get injured is that they're running too fast on long runs. And then right with that is that they're not tying in the run, walk, run with the right pace that they should be doing. So anyway, the Magic Mile not only gives us that safe pace in the beginning, but as the season progresses, you do regular Magic Miles, and almost everybody improves on just about every one of them. And by the end of the season, you can see what is going to be realistic for the race if you do all of the speed work training, which includes some weekend speed workouts and also long runs than you would do if you were training for a to-finish event.
Mm-hmm. So when I went backwards from, and that Magic Mile should be at a pretty hard clip, correct?
Well, the first one should not be nearly all out. It can be a little faster than you're usually running on a regular run day. But the first one is just a reference time. And so then the second one, you want to beat. The Magic Mile speed is about the fastest that any of our trainers are going to be using during the season and in any other element that they're training for.
You cut out just a second. So the second Magic Mile should be?
The second Magic Mile mission is to beat the time on the first one.
Okay.
And then thereafter, the same mission it goes into place, and that is to try to keep improving your time on each successive magic mile.
And you've had people do those every couple of weeks if they were training for a marathon, perhaps?
It's every 2 to 3 weeks. It depends on the schedule. You can interweave them with other weekend events. They're done on non-long run weekends.
Mm-hmm. And you said, one of your books, if you want to run faster, you also have to run faster. So, sometimes I think that, this is interpreted as, oh, it's just a run walk. We're going to stroll our way into the marathon, eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches all the way through. And we'll get, it'll be happy and we'll all be good. But if I really want to, I guess marathoners want to hurt themselves a little bit, no pain, no gain. We want to go out there. But so there's two schools of, the school of thought that, this run walk's not going to be hard, but it is, because when you are doing speed work.
Well, the Galloway method is a whole lot more than just run, walk, run. It has a number of unique elements that you don't find on any other standard training program. One of them is to get the length of the long run up to at least the distance of the race that you're going to do, because statistically we found that, for example, if a half marathoner is used to running 10 miles as their longest and they go up to 14 miles before their next half marathon and weather conditions and everything are the same, there's an average of a 7-minute time improvement. Wow. Just by increasing the length of a very, very slow long run. You can even walk the entire distance of your long run and you will get the same benefit of that endurance. So that's one element. And the other one is some speed repetitions that are done on also some of the non-long run weekends. And you'll see these listed in my book, Year Round Plan, or Boston Marathon, How to Qualify. And they're interwoven in it. But one of the unique elements that I've not seen in any other program is that we build the number of those mile repetitions or half mile repetitions up to 14 of them. Mm-hmm. And that's a very long workout, and it's a very tough workout. But what it does is simulate what you're going through at the end of a hard pace in a half or full marathon. And if you haven't gone through those sensations and your legs haven't had to keep pushing when you do go through that, it's very unlikely you're going to achieve the goal that you could achieve.
Yes. It you do have to, as a running coach that I use, he said you have to learn to be uncomfortably comfortable.
That is what it usually takes.
Because but not too far the other direction. You kind of know when you got to be able to feel the sweet spot, what you think you can sustain, but yet be able to push it. Because I fall into, and I think a lot of runners, I think it was Matt Fitzgerald that wrote a book, a lot of your average runner, we run in a gray zone, not too hard, not too easy, but we don't really get anywhere.
Well, that is true. Most of the people that come to me wanting to improve their time are not doing anything to improve their time. They're just going out and running the way they have for 3 to 10 years. And as you get older, not going to improve. It's going to actually go the other way. But the good news is that by putting in these targeted training elements, such as the longer long runs, the speed repetitions on the weekend, the form drills that I have my people do every week, and then race rehearsal segments that are done every week to get you ready for the pace that you want to. And finally, some hill training to get your form right, going up and going down hills, as well as extra strength.
Mm-hmm. That's a little bit challenging here in Florida, right?
Well, do you
do treadmills? Do you do treadmill? You can.
You can. It's a little trickier, but you can certainly use treadmills with a grade of 5 to 7% on the tread.
Great, fabulous. Well, that's really, really, really interesting. I think that it's a great way to go through and do these, and there's a lot of camaraderie as well. When you're looking at how did you come up with you said huffing and puffing, but you have you're pretty, obviously you've done thousands of people, but you're fairly specific with ages, especially in the running and to your 100 book and the ratio of run to walk.
Yes. And the ratios that we have evolved into, and it's been a total evolution of these, it's really based on the database, the give and take that I have with every person every day. Almost all of my advice that I give in those 100 or so emails a day involves some run, walk, run advice. And most of these people get back to me, the total being over 500,000 now over the years. But what has happened over the years is, as the database has increased, I keep seeing new trends that pop up when these people come back to me. And this is what changes things up. It's all based on what works. Well, what works is that shorter segments of running and shorter segments of walking work better than longer segments of either. Mm-hmm. And so currently, for example, if we're talking about a 10-minute per mile pace, we used to say run 3 minutes and walk 1 minute. Well, now it's either 90 seconds run, 30 seconds walk, or it's 60 seconds run and 30 seconds walk, or even 45 seconds run. And some people actually do 30-30 and run 10 minutes per mile, 9 minutes per mile. And we've had a few that have run below 9 minutes per mile for marathons using 30-30.
So that's their average pace. So that's where the math gets a little fuzzy for my thick head, as far as, so if you're running a minute and walking 30 seconds and you want to do a 9-minute pace, then that puts you in the 8:30 range, someplace around there, right, for actual run segments.
It probably is, but that varies widely, because right from the beginning, when we started studying the various paces of walking and running back in the 1980s, we found real quick that almost everybody in a group of runners who were running at that same pace, one of our pace groups, almost everybody walks at a different pace. And that's the way it should be. They should walk to be able to recover from the run. So they're empowered to do that. And then they catch up. If they're behind, they catch up during the running segment. But the other finding is that during a given race, everybody has a different walk pace and a different run pace as the miles go by. There is nobody that is a metronome to be able to run exactly that same walking or running pace. So the goal, if you have a time goal, is simply to stay at the pace that you want, if it's realistic.
Mm-hmm. So what you're looking at your mile splits, and that's basically how you're training to do that. So you're seeing what that mile split should be.
That's right. In our Tuesday workout in our Galloway training program, I recommend that the runners do 4 each of our drills, the cadence drill and then the acceleration glider drill. But then they would go into a set of 4 to 8, either quarter miles or half miles. And these are run just dead on, hopefully, at the pace that you want to run in your next goal race, so that you get pace judgment. But on each one of them, you also want to try out a different run, walk, run configuration. And then by the mid-season, you already have several candidates that are working well for you and are sustainable to the end.
So again, there's a lot more that goes into it, as than people just going out and say, okay, I'm going to set my watch 3 minutes on, 1 minute off, or 1 minute walk, and then everything's going to work out. And I just got to run this pace. Yeah.
And it gets interesting for people that used to run that way. They just go out and put one foot in front of the other. Once they get into our Galloway program, they find that each day has a mission, and it engages the brain. It gives them something to work on, and it makes it more fun.
Very, very good. Very good. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, it's a whole new way of looking at things. The other thing that you mentioned in your book, which I'd like to just talk about, we're seeing back in '74 there wasn't that big of a run movement, and I started, I think my first marathon, it was 2000, and then from 2000, I guess the last 20 years, you saw the Rock and Roll series. There's been a lot of marathons everywhere. Used to, when I first started, you kind of had to look for them a little bit, but then they became, you could pretty much run pretty close any weekend that you wanted to run. And you start seeing a lot of people that, have the marathon as a goal, but maybe it should have been it becomes one of those things, the bucket list. I want to check it off. And you made a statement, which I think is very important, that, carrying extra weight makes your running age a lot older.
Very true, because it's all about what your muscles can stand. And it's very well known that as you get older than 45 years old, your muscle capacity for performance in exercise goes down a little bit every year or two. And so 10 years later, if you want to improve, you have to work a whole lot harder than you did 10 years before that, because there's less muscle capacity available there. The good news is that if you keep your weight down, then you will lower some of the overexertion that could go on heavy runners when they try to improve. Because they have heavy runners have two things going against them. They've got age, and then they've also got the weight that they have to carry. So the muscles are asked to work a whole lot harder for someone that weighs more. And then the other advantage there is to look into meaningful ways. And I know you have a great plan of plant-based that's been very effective. I've noticed on your website that. And the bottom line is to find the right nutritional plan that works for the individual. And I hear all types of stories. At every given Disney event, being the official training consultant for the Run Disney series, I have several thousand people that come up to me and tell me their story throughout the weekend, and they're amazing stories. There are several dozen at every Disney event that have lost over 100 pounds and kept it off.
Wow.
And 15, 20 years ago, I hardly heard anybody that lost that much and kept it off. But it's happening today, and running is one of the key reasons for that, in combination with cognitive and very targeted nutritional analysis. And if you have your conscious brain looking at everything that you're about to put in your mouth, and it's turns out to be good stuff, you're going to end up losing weight or finding the right weight that you want.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of left brains, you also have a section in your books, about chatter and keeping on, as you go, keeping the negative chatter out, the positive chatter in, and focusing on, the task at hand as opposed to, when it's going to be. Marathon's a long way. If you start by saying, okay, I have one down and 26 to go or 25 to go, it's going to be a while.
Well, yes. And the big breakthrough for me was in the research I had to do for my mental training book. And what I discovered first is that we have two brain operating systems. The chatter you're talking about is generated by our ancient subconscious emotional brain that I often call the monkey brain. And sadly, a high percentage of runners will allow the monkey brain to be in control over their running. And when that happens, when the stress builds up, the monkey brain starts dumping anxiety hormones and negative hormones, which then generate those types of thoughts. And then you get that chatter, the negative chatter, that comes in. But if you have a cognitive strategy, which my mental training book goes into, it has several of them. It allows you to stay cognitive, because if you have a cognitive strategy, you turn on the human brain that overrides the monkey brain, and the hormones go away while you are pursuing your strategy. It's a big breakthrough.
Very cool. Well, this has been fabulous. I can't thank you enough for taking time to speak with me. I think everybody listening is going to learn a tremendous amount. Again, you can go to your jeffgalloway.com to see the calculators in your website and find out about, I guess, when the new events come up. Disney comes back around. We're going to get back there at some point, so they can sign up for an event. And if you're going through Tallahassee, which I'm probably going to be going through Tallahassee in a few weeks, my daughter's expecting her first baby in Houston, and I'm going to go that way. So I might stop by, and I might need a new pair of shoes.
Well, actually, the store started in Tallahassee, but in '75 I moved the store to Atlanta. So
okay.
We have two stores, and they're both in Atlanta. But due to the fact that they're closed down now, and actually most of the running stores in this country are closed down, we now have online capability. So if you cannot get a shoe, you can either go to jeffgalloway.com and you'll find the Phidippides logo there. My store is named Phidippides. Okay. And you can push that, and you can order your stuff, whatever you need. But we're also doing online clinics now, since we can't get out there and give people advice. Just go to jeffgalloway.com. I'm doing a session on motivation tomorrow night, on Thursday night, and one on how to set up your training program on Sunday, and also a week from Thursday. These are only 1-hour classes, and they're very inexpensive. They're $29, and
nice.
And you get to have my direct email address afterwards too.
Very good, very good. Okay, well, I hope a lot of people will sign up for that, and you'll need to have a bell around that 20-minute to get up and walk, so you'll be getting so many emails. So
great, I love it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking time to speak with me. I look forward to speaking with you again someday, and I'll let you know that next Run Walk Marathon, how that goes. Please do. Stay in touch, and let me know if I can help you or any of your listeners out there. All right. I appreciate it. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that podcast interview with Jeff Galloway. Please go to his website, jeffgalloway.com, and you can find out a whole host of information. I'll put links to his books. They're very good, very informative. His website has a whole host of information. Takeaways, running will decrease your mental fog, improve your depression, increase your mental capabilities. It's just really good for you. So again, you're too old not to take up running. Run, walk, run method is a great way to ease into things and decrease your injuries. Pace ultimately is set by a magic mile, and you do those every once in a while. And there's a lot of information on this website on how to complete that. It's not about running all out and walking all out. The walk is a means to recover from your run, decrease injuries. So, whether you're a new runner and you want to complete your first marathon, complete your first half marathon, or you're a seasoned runner, give this a shot. I hope you enjoy it. Please head on over to my website, drdelaney.com, to check out our website, sign up for the newsletter, see what's going on. In our practice, we are getting a marathon group up, as well as, we have yoga and we have stretching and nutrition classes. So this is all a part of being part of a wellness practice. It's not just about being sick. It's how to not get sick and how to remain healthy and live your best lifespan. So go on over and see what we have to offer at drdelaney.com. You can follow me on Facebook as well as Instagram. I post what I eat. I post some runs, what I'm up to. So thank you again for listening. I would really appreciate you going over to iTunes if you like this and give us a 5-star review so we can get more people listening to this podcast. It's very important to spread the word about plant-based nutrition, wellness, and movement and exercise. Just get out and do it and eat your plants, eat your vegetables, get some sunshine, be well. See you next week.